help us understand better how this caucus is approaching policy making and prioritizing, because we're going to talk in a moment about the priority bills, prioritizing which legislation to prioritize.
What I would say is that it's not just the members of color caucus, it's our interaction with all of the House Democrats in particular, and influence that we have on Republicans. What I would say is that we look at every bill and find out, does this have a disproportionate impact on certain communities, or is this targeting specific communities? While it doesn't say it on the surface, it may have a really disastrous impact on communities. And then some bills we wholly look at, for example, immigrant and refugee communities, and looking at how we can support all Washingtonians, especially the folks who are contributing to our societies but aren't able to reap the benefits of what they're contributing.
How is the work of the members of color caucus, which is specific to the House Democrats, if I'm not mistaken, how is it different or aligned with the work of the legislative black caucus, which, again, if I'm correct, spans both chambers?
Yes. Well, the Senate has members of color caucus, and so they've been able to work in coalition with themselves, and our caucus is pretty large, so getting to a large caucus, that seems like it gets harder to manage all the folks. I mean, we're a big tent. We're not a monolith. Sometimes we have internal dynamics even within one cultural community. The Legislative Black Caucus grew to 11 members in 2021, and I was the chair at the time, and we needed to do some internal building and outreach into community, and we've continued to lead on efforts that are around criminal justice reform, economic justice reform, and we come from a lens as the Legislative Black Caucus of eliminating anti-blackness, because sometimes racism is targeted at black people, and other folks of color are pitted against black folks, and so we get these dynamics where communities who are all marginalized are not able to achieve the very best of the advocacy that comes from specific communities. So addressing the anti-blackness and then bringing that context to the members of color caucus, so there are internal dynamics that are happening there, making sure that there isn't anti-Asian hate. We can be allies to other efforts and other movements that are going on within our caucus in Washington.
I want to go back to just something you mentioned just a moment ago about influencing not only the thinking and maybe the approach of your fellow House Democrats, but also potentially minority Republicans. Is there an example of that, or either actually changing somebody's mind or maybe informing someone's thinking, or just ways that you've been able to engage with Republicans across the aisle in a way that you think was fruitful?
Well, surprisingly, on my bill for the Covenant Homeownership Act, we received bipartisan support. There was direct support with a vote, so that means we actually have Republican Senator Muzal, who voted for that particular bill. But I've seen multiple efforts where Republicans have voted in favor of things that have racial equity, especially around business development and other things. So having an inclusive economy helps all of Washington.
You can check out the rest of the show by clicking on the link below or by watching Inside Olympia Thursday evenings at 7 and 10.